welcome to another episode of the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Dobbs, and today, for the first time ever, we have a guest on the show. And more than that, our wonderful guest is the beautiful, incredible, amazing, hilarious, awesome Victoria Garrick. Now, you might know Victoria's name from, honestly, a lot of different places. Maybe it's from her podcast, Real Pod, or a hashtagged post, hashtag Real Post by her or even one of your friends. Maybe you know her as the legacy she left as a volleyball player at the University of Southern California, or her viral TikTok, or her viral TED Talk, she's had a lot of viral TikToks too, about the hidden opponent in sports, which is being mental health. Maybe you've seen her TikToks and her social media about mental health, about body image, eating intuitively, and so much more. Or maybe you've honestly just seen her fun content about how in love she is with Taylor Swift. Y'all, however you might know her name, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing about her, she has so much wisdom and encouragement, especially for athletes. So y'all take note of everything in this episode. But before we begin, let me remind you to please subscribe below to this podcast here on YouTube. We're so pumped to be branching out to putting our episodes on YouTube as videos in addition to all of our streaming audio already, so you guys can really see and dive deeper into the personal conversations we have here on the podcast. And in addition to subscribing here on YouTube, make sure you're following us on all social media platforms, because we don't want you to miss a thing, whether it's merch updates, talking about the podcast, the book, and so much more. It's all on our social media platforms, so check them out below. Follow on everything and make sure you don't miss a thing. But guys, this episode is so fun and so incredible. Get your notes out. Enjoy the episode. Here is episode 2 of season 1. Check it out. This is the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast, and I'm your host, Cameron Dobbs. Victoria Garrick, what's up?
Hi, Cam. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for coming on the show. I am seriously so honored to have you on. I know we've talked a little bit kind of this past year, getting to know each other a little more. And you are seriously such a role model to me, such a friend to me. I just see you as such a bright light in every single day life. And whether it's you showing a real post of even when you're struggling to actually being a light and being joyful and enjoying life and thriving in life, you are just incredible. So I'm honored to have you on here today. You guys can't see because it's a podcast, but I'm literally wearing her merch on the show because I wanted to honor her with that, which plugging her merch here. If you don't have Real Pod merch, that's her podcast merch. Go ahead and get it. I'm sure all the information's in her bio. Check it out. Real Pod, the podcast, and Real Pod merch as well. So cute, so comfy, and you don't want to miss out.
Thank you. It looks so beautiful on you. And thank you for the compliments. You're too kind. And I am just so excited and happy to be here. And I'm so proud of you for continuing to go after it. That's how we first got in touch. I was just like, this girl, I was like, she posts all that. She tags me and everything. She's so cute. She's so spunky. I spoke, at your school. I was just like, I had to reach out to you. I was like, hi. I was like, we need to talk because I think you are it and I want to be associated and I want to help you if you need anything. So I think it's really cool too how we met, and what a full circle moment to be on your show.
Yes, it really is. It's so, so incredible. And I mean, Victoria, you have a ton of awesome things going in your life right now, specifically like literally this past month, because your life is always exciting. It's always, you're doing great things. I mean, I'm always so enjoying following you. And right now you are really thriving. I mean, I know I listened to your podcast today, so I know there are things, of course, that we struggle with day to day. Yes, I'm not ignoring that, but you got engaged. You launched your 100th episode of Real Pod, and you just hit 1 million downloads on Real Pod. So just talk to me. Let's start at square one here. How is wedding planning going?
Oh my gosh. Well, everything is so exciting. Wedding planning is going well in the sense that it's so fun to be doing all of this. Like you dream about it when you're young, and then you're actually like meeting a wedding planner, and my mom and I are looking at venues together. And so it's really starting to feel real. It has been hard to find the venue just because I have like my style for the wedding. I want very European style, traditional, royal. Like I want to do more of that ball gown, beautiful staircase moment, as opposed to like under an oak tree with a flower crown. There's nothing against that. It's beautiful, but I just want a certain type of wedding. However, it's really hard to find that in California because everything in California is gorgeous oak trees and the beach and flowers. So, it's been quite the adventure trying to find the perfect spot. I think we have found something quite close. Now we just have to try to get a date there. So, it's been exciting. It's so much goes into weddings I had no idea about until you actually start to plan.
Oh my goodness, I bet. And it's so fun because, we all know that you're always sharing your life with us on Instagram and on social media. And it's been so much fun to follow you around in your wedding planning journey as well, because you went live. This was so funny. You went live the other night with your mom. I think you were going like venue to venue, and just it was you guys talking. You were doing kind of a Q&A about wedding planning, but your mom is just hilarious in how you guys are working together right now.
Oh my God. She's so funny. She's like literally wants me to stop doing anything. She wants to do it all herself. She's like, can you just let me plan the wedding and I'll just tell you when to show up? I'm like, no. She's like, you're making this so difficult for me. I'm like, why? Because I have
my wedding. So fun. And of course, again, congrats on the other big milestone in your life. Not only are you planning for a wedding, but you just had the big milestone in your professional career of hitting that 1 million downloads mile mark for your podcast. So congrats with that. It is such an incredible podcast. I love it. I told you I was just catching up on today's episode. Haven't finished yet. I'm about halfway through. But so inspirational as always, so just opening, so vulnerable. And especially on today's episode, guys, check it out. She launched her 100th episode, and it is, you said you're flipping the script, and it's literally you being now the interview subject. And you were talking, you were sharing more of your story, what's going on in your life right now, what you're struggling with, what's going well. And we just love you for it. We love you for always having the real pod and the real posts and being vulnerable, because we're able to learn so much for you. So thank you. And I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thanks so much. That means the world. And yeah, it was so exciting.
Of course. And, I've been following you for several years now, pretty much since your TED Talk went viral back, I think in 2017 or so. That was my freshman year of college. And so I remember sitting in our SAC meeting at the University of Miami with all these student athletes and us pulling up this random TED Talk from a girl named Victoria Garrick at USC. And we watched that.
Made your SAC watch it?
We did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
so
cool.
that was my first time I was introduced to you, was watching that TED Talk. And I was just like, this girl is awesome. So, basically been following you ever since. And then, like we said, we got connected more this year. And it's just been so cool, again, seeing your #real posts, seeing you be so vulnerable every single day on social media, whether it's good and you're showcasing that #real post, I'm happy, I'm thriving, I'm living my best life. And I'm going to be proud of that. I'm going to show the world that because I want to share positivity. Or #real post that life is tough. And right now I'm kind of struggling, and we appreciate both sides of that, every single side of it. So again, thank you for being the incredible human being you are. I promise you I won't spend the whole podcast complimenting you.
Oh my God. Again, I never want it to end.
I'm just here to be your hype girl today. Let's be honest, that's what this is for. But no, seriously, honored to have you on here. And I was joking with you before we started the recording that brainstorming topics to talk about with you was so tough, because I feel like we could just talk on here for hours. And I'm a talker in general, as you can tell. So that would just go on forever. But I really think that we can have such a great conversation about one topic here. And whether this topic may seem super broad or maybe a little more specific, I think today I'd love to talk about self-love with you. And self-love, to me, it's definitely a daily choice. It's not something that, I'm great at self-love and that's kind of the end of the story. It's something you have to daily work on with yourself. It's a motivation you have to choose every single day. And it's something you have to prioritize. And so let's dive into it. You are always advocating for self-love, body positivity, mental health advocacy, all of that stuff. And it is something you have to choose on a daily basis. So that means it's probably not easy. If you have to focus on it intentionally every single day, it's not something easy. And I relate to this a lot. And I struggle with this sometimes because when I medically retired with post-concussive syndrome playing volleyball, that was a hard thing to do, was go for self-love. And really self-love to me is a lot of self-acceptance, because I was looking at, okay, here's this body who used to be this D1 athlete starter on the Canes volleyball team to now this body who doesn't work out at all, cannot work out at all, did not work out for 6 months because of injury. And my physical strength was gone, and just so many difficulties in that. And so talking more about accepting yourself, what's some of your biggest advice to do that on a daily basis, to always accept yourself?
Well, I love how you brought up self-love actually being more like self-acceptance, because I think that is really the key, because it's not easy to look in the mirror and actually love what you see. And I think nowadays there can be a pressure to feel like everyone has to think they're beautiful and they're pretty and their body is enough and all those things. And sometimes you can feel even more because not only are you unhappy with the way you look, but the world's telling you have to love the way you look and you don't. So then you're double feeling like you're inadequate. So I like to remind people that we don't have to love ourselves yet. We don't have to have the positivity. I think I'm beautiful. I think I'm perfect. If you're not there, that's okay. Let's commit to no longer saying the negative things. We're not going to say I'm a piece of shit, I look ugly, no one likes me, my body sucks. We're not going to say that because it's not helpful. We're not going to bully ourselves. We're not going to force ourselves to say the things that we're not ready for. But can we meet ourselves in the middle with just, okay, this is where I am today. This is what I look like. This is what I am able to do. This is what's in my life. This is where I am today. And can I accept that? And acceptance doesn't mean you have to like agree or you have to be happy or thrilled about it. Acceptance can just be acknowledgement of what is. And when you think about it that way, it can become easier to accept because you're realizing you don't have to be thrilled about it, super excited. Maybe it's not everything you ever wanted, but you're able to have the perspective and say, this is where we are today, and I'm going to be here with that.
I love that. That's so good. And the whole time I was thinking, that's exactly what playing where your feet are is about. That's literally exactly what playing where your feet are is about. It's being aware where your feet are. It's being aware where your mind's at. It's being aware where your body's at. You know, there were many times in my recovery and in my healing, and even today, that I'm doing a workout and I'm lifting. Today I worked out this morning and I lifted 20-pound dumbbells for like the first time in a while. And I was like pushing myself and dripping sweat and like, it's only 20-pound dumbbells. And so I have that in the back of my head that like, girl, you used to dumbbell bench press 70-pound dumbbells. So I'm like, okay, not quite the same, but that's where my feet are today. Is I'm with my 20-pound dumbbells and I'm crushing it and I'm doing well and it's hard for me, but that means I'm getting stronger and I'm changing and I'm getting better. And so I love how you just mentioned that awareness that we have to have with playing where our feet are and with acknowledging ourselves in the present moment where we're at mentally, so that then we can accept ourselves. It comes with that awareness that maybe I'm not where I want to be, but I'm going to do the best where I'm at, mentally, physically, whatever it may be in every single arena.
Definitely.
And so talking about this too on a loving your body base. So you said it too. Maybe you don't have to love your body. You just have to know where you're at. And society is telling us all the time to love your body, girl, you look great no matter how. And sometimes that's hard to even love your own body. For me, again, going back to what I just said, that comparison factor with my former self always gets to me. It's looking at me when I was this D1 athlete, when I had the great body, when I was in great shape of my life, and then where I'm at now. And so maybe it's not always loving where you're at, but it's doing the best where you're at. So talk a little bit of you were a former athlete too. You've been there. You've been sharing your fitness journey of getting back into it, of trying to manage 4 days a week or whatever it may be, a nice routine. So talking a little bit more on the fitness side of things, how do you learn to love your body where it's at?
Well, I guess to play like, or to present a scenario, to present like a different opinion, maybe the positivity and the love is something that will come with time. and instead to focus on like a mindset of neutrality of, you know, I am going to really embrace playing where my feet are, and I'm just going to be here and be open to the situation, the experience without judgment. Try to find gratitude for what my body can allow me to do. Like it allows me to go on a run or to walk or to just get out of bed in the morning, or that I, at the bare minimum, have a heart that's beating and keeping me alive, right? And that's pumping and it's working for me. And the more that we can just tap into that daily acceptance and a neutral take, that over time we might start to naturally be like, oh, I really love the fact that my body has shown up for me every single day this month, or that, you know, I've been able to grow with this neutral voice and get rid of the negativity. And I'm loving that about myself. And so I think the love will come with time. It's almost like falling in love with someone. I can't present to you a person and say, this is your future husband, love him. You're like, no, I want to get to know him. I want to go to dinner. I want to go on a date, whatever. It's kind of like that with ourselves. We need to take the time to be kind, to start to change our relationship. And then maybe we'll start to grow in love.
Okay, what a great analogy. That's so good. I can imagine that in my brain right now, where it's almost like discovering your own body. And so that neutral opinion that you have about yourself, kind of going in there with no expectations. So whenever you're approaching whatever you may be approaching, whether it is working out, whether it is eating, whether it's to-do lists, whether it's going to school, literally anything in your life, approach it with less expectations. I think so many times expectations can really kill the experience, and
Right.
it can put different things in your head that, whether it's a fantasy or you think it's going to be terrible, then going in with those expectations can almost shift the experience for you, whether it's good or bad. And so I think having that neutral mindset is genius. It's so, so smart. And learning to discover your body, to date yourself in a way, like you were saying, to learn how to fall in love with yourself, learn how to figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, figure out what gives you joy. And like you said, whether it is just, being proud of yourself, or, hey, I woke up today, I went on a walk around my neighborhood, or, hey, I woke up today and I did a 6:30 a.m. workout, or, hey, I woke up today, like, period. I woke up today. I
Yeah.
woke up today. I went to school. I woke up and I made my breakfast. I woke up today and I got out of bed. And I think just learning to celebrate those little wins amidst this neutral mindset is so, so important. So thank you for bringing up that point.
Of course. And you totally expanded on it perfectly. I think it's great. I never even said that before, but now I'm like, maybe I should make an Instagram caption about that.
Maybe I should use that more often.
Yeah.
And transitioning this into another topic of maybe more on the food side of things, because that's one thing that you talk a lot about as well, is the differences between dieting and just eating, and different. You have so much more knowledge than I do, so I'm not even going to try to explain it here. But you talk a lot about nutrition and dieting, and the good things about it, the bad things about it, all over. And for me, again, as a former athlete, when I was transitioning from athlete to life after sport, a big thing for me was, oh, I can't have a brownie today because I did not do a 3-hour workout like I used to do, so I don't deserve it. And so talking about that acceptance of letting you have a cookie if you want a cookie, or letting you have a brownie if you want to have a brownie, talking about more the acceptance in like a lifestyle perspective. So more than just fitness, maybe it's food, maybe it's more than that. What are your tips or advice or motivations to really accept yourself in those moments too?
My relationship with food has changed so much from when I was younger. And the biggest thing that has been the biggest thing that has helped me make the change is really giving myself trust when it comes to food, what I want to eat, how I want to eat, how it's going to make me feel. When we look at someone who is dieting or is not allowing themselves to have a brownie, it's very much, I can't control myself. I can't make decisions. So I'm going to follow a diet. I'm going to follow a calorie count. I'm going to follow whatever it is, because I cannot listen to myself or trust myself, right? That's like what diet culture kind of convinces us to believe, is we have to follow these regimens and do these things because that's the key to a great body. And as we do that, we get farther and farther away from our natural intuition. of, am I hungry? Does a brownie sound good? How is it going to make me feel when it's in my stomach? Is this even the type of brownie that I like? Or is it just the brownie that's here? So really giving myself permission to ask myself those questions. Am I hungry? Yeah, I'm kind of hungry. And does this brownie sound good? Yeah, it sounds good, but I actually maybe want something that's crunchy and cold because that elicits joy from my taste buds right now, whatever it is. But to really allow yourself time to connect with your intuition and what your body wants, and then determine an answer that's best for you. And if it is the brownie, amazing, have the brownie. And then if you want another one, have another one. If it's not that and it's something else, great, but only you can know that. And I would just really encourage anyone who is struggling with these things to start to look inward instead of outward. And there's some amazing authors and experts who have incredible resources. This practice is called intuitive eating. And there's even an intuitive eating workbook by Elise Resch, which is fabulous for people who want to journal and really explore this.
You talked about this is a big process of trusting yourself. And that talks a little bit on the line of self-love, self-acceptance, can't even talk, self-acceptance, and then also giving yourself grace. And that's one thing that I am very bad at, I will admit. I'm so terrible at giving myself grace in those moments that I am trying to trust myself, but maybe I disappoint myself. And so how do you handle when you disappoint yourself after trying to trust yourself? I think it's so different when you're working with someone else and maybe they misplace your trust, you misplace the trust, and they disappoint you. That's a whole different arena than when you disappoint yourself. So in the aspect of giving yourself grace, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, every time that happens, you learn something about yourself. So for example, this was like way back when in quarantine, but it's the first thing that came to mind. I really wanted like a little burger slider. Like I was just like, I really want a cheesy, like bready, burgery slider. And we had some frozen ones in the freezer. They were like my dad's, or like White Castle, whatever. They didn't seem too appetizing, but I really wanted this slider. So I was like, I'm going to have one. So I heated up like 3 and I bit into the first one. And from the first bite, I was like thinking to myself, this is disgusting. I was like, it doesn't taste good. It was literally frozen 5 minutes ago. Like this, like, yes, I want a burger and a slider, but this is not the type that I want. But I just kind of ignored that. And I finished it. And then I ate the next one. And then I ate the next one. And then I sat there and my stomach felt so full. Like it had just, like I just swallowed something that didn't even taste good to me. The whole experience, I sat there afterwards, and then this is the moment, right? You're saying like you tried to trust yourself and you didn't, and now you're living with it. So how do you get through that? So I sat there with these 3 White Castle patties in my stomach, and I just kind of talked myself through. I'm like, okay, so what did we learn? We learned that when we have the first bite of something and our gut instinct is this doesn't taste good, it's not what I wanted, even though I thought it's what I wanted, it's not what I wanted, to take a moment, take a breath. Okay, then I don't have to finish these. Can I think about what else might sound good here? Because when I keep going and I'm not using, mindful breathing, and I'm not taking a pause, and I'm not really listening to what my self is telling me, that I'm going to end up feeling this way. And this feeling doesn't feel great. But I'm also a human, and food and body image has been really hard for me. And this is just a moment where I get it. I'm not gonna be perfect all the time. Like there's gonna be moments that I don't do my best, or I do something I shouldn't have, or I quote unquote fail. Dr. T from The Hidden Opponent has one of my favorite quotes, which is, failure, first attempt in learning. So anytime you fail is an opportunity to learn something. And so I sit there with the White Castle patties in my stomach and I think, okay, I get why this happened. I'm going to have some compassion for myself. Next time I bite a food and I get this sense, I'm going to remember this moment, and hopefully I can redirect and I can be different next time. And that is the best that we can do.
Reframing that mindset of failure too. You said it's first attempt in learning, right? First attempt in learning is fail. And I think that goes back. It's funny because you said it's the first time you've ever mentioned this analogy, but I think it goes back to the whole dating aspect of dating yourself and discovering yourself. It's a live and learn experience. And we mentioned it just when we were starting here, but it's a process that's continual. It's not something that, okay, I have officially read this book and I know how to love myself and I know how to be self-aware and I'm never going to fail again. Like, no, we're not experts ever at this, whether you're an influencer like you are. I mean, you still struggle with this as well. I still struggle with this. It doesn't matter who we are. I think any and every day we go about our lives, we're going to continue learning how to love ourselves, learning how to accept ourselves, learning how to trust ourselves, and just grow and progress from there. We talked about this. I actually recorded another podcast last week with a UCF baseball player who talked about the concept of forever change. Forever change. You have to forever change in anything and everything to improve. And life is just a continual process of improvement, of changing, of learning, of failing and succeeding.
And if I have another incident where I eat something and it doesn't feel good, but I keep eating it because I'm sad or I'm not thinking straight or whatever, further attempts in learning, right? We just keep going. So I love that quote from Dr. T. And I think it really helps.
One of the hard things for me is amidst a busy schedule, prioritizing self-love and self-care and reflection. And I am one that if I'm going to sacrifice anything in my life in order to get things done, it's going to be sleep. I am one that I'm already a night owl, but then I'm also a morning person. So it's like the exact terrible circumstance that you can be put in. Because I literally last night, I think I went to bed at 2 a.m. and then I woke up at 5:45 for workouts. And so talking just about, I mean, you have a very busy schedule on top of the engagement, you and the wedding planning and the venue traveling and all that things. I mean, you are everything you are. You're speaking, you're traveling, you're doing appearances, you're hosting a podcast, you're doing social media content, you're doing campaigning, collaboration, like all this stuff, working out, eating, like you have a fiance, you have a lot of things going in your life. And so how do you just manage this self-love time or reflection time or just even bettering yourself time?
It's funny to hear you say that back to me because I recently haven't felt like I've been super motivated or like gotten a lot of things done. So I almost feel like I have been doing the bare minimum recently with like work and everything. And because of that, I've had like way more time to have self-care moments. I almost think what I'm learning in this situation is I need to have a balance because for so long I was grinding, like cranking out content. I mean, just all hours of the day I was working. And then I hit this burnout phase. And then now I'm like in that where I have a bare minimum things I need to do because like they have to get done to keep my job going. But I'm not at all in a place where I feel like I'm succeeding or I'm doing my best. Like I'm not doing my best. So I think I am now trying to get back to being more motivated and giving it my best effort while also allowing myself time so that I don't have to go through these stages of on top of the world and then really burnt out. So I don't have the best answer. I haven't been doing it right. I got to figure that out.
I'm right there with you. And my biggest struggle is honestly, I will jam pack my days with all these great motivations and things to do and things that need to get done and things that can get done. And then I cross off like 2 things off my list of the day. Right. And then it's into that downward spiral of me just being so upset with myself and going back to disappointing yourself. I get disappointed in myself that I had this great long list of to-dos today. And here I am only completing a couple of them with so many more now pushing on tomorrow's to-do list. And it's just this never ending spiral of trying to get things done, not getting things done, struggling to get things done, getting some great things done, but then always never feeling like I did enough at the end of the day.
Right, exactly. Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, preaching to myself for sure. And so you actually talked about this concept though on your Instagram the other day, which is so funny because it's just like perfectly timed with how I was prepping for this podcast. But you mentioned your own way that you were organizing. I think it was today's Wednesday. I think it was maybe even Monday that you posted about this, but you were organizing for your week and getting things ready to go so you could be productive. And one thing you talked about on your own organization skills was, I think it was your can-do list and your must-do list. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the motivation behind that.
Well, when you make a big list of all these things you want to do, it can seem so overwhelming, and then we just like don't even do anything at all. So if you take that list and you just split it up to your must-dos and your can-dos, then you put on your must-do column, okay, what absolutely has to be done on this Monday? Like, what cannot happen tomorrow? And then you'll find like, actually, there's only one or two things you have to do today. And then you can do those two things first. And then you can switch over to your can-dos if you still have energy and you want to like get on top of the next day. And it's been really helpful for me to compartmentalize.
And in your organization for each week, do you actually implement time for resting, for taking time to yourself? What does that look like for you?
I don't usually do that because I'm not so busy that I forget to take care of myself. Like, I'm almost to a point where I'm like so selfish with my self-care that like in the middle of the day, I will like just drop what I'm doing and do self-care. So I know that I will always like make time to do that. If I do feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm so overworked and I'm super stressed, then I'll be like, okay, tomorrow I got to cancel something. I got to move things around. So I don't have to like pencil it in when I plan my week. And honestly, nowadays, like I am not, because I haven't been as driven, like I'm not working crazy hours. I'm doing like normal work hours. So at like 6 or 7, I get to enjoy my night. And so that feels like, you know, my time to do self-care too.
And in those moments that you do feel like you're having a bad day, or whether it's a bad day or a good day, but you just feel like you need time to yourself during the day when maybe you have other plans, or even just like, oh, I'm going to work from this hour to this hour. And then you have to kind of stop and be like, okay, I need a breather. I need to go for a walk. I need to go get lunch, whatever it may be. How did you get to that place of being confident in knowing that your mental health needs to be prioritized?
I think that came over time when I had so many instances where I did fall into a rut and I wasn't taking good care of myself. And I had to understand that it was okay to put myself first sometimes. And you maybe relate to this as an athlete, but I think I said this when I was speaking to the ACC. As athletes, we always put everyone else first. There's no I in team, you know, it's about your teammates. It's about everyone else, about your parents, your family. Like, you are supposed to put yourself last. And that gets very scary, honestly, when it does transfer over to mental health and how you're really feeling, because what's our natural tendency? Oh, no. I'm fine. Like, I can power through. I don't want to hold anyone back. I don't want to be the weak link. But sometimes you do need to say, I got to put myself first here. And as a result, that's going to help the team, because you are only as strong as your weakest link. So it is important, you know?
And what about those moments where, because I think it's a little different when maybe you're dealing with like work priorities and work situations, and then going into family life. So for me, like during the pandemic, for example, I was home with my family for 5 months or so straight, which was such a blessing. And obviously I know that was not necessarily everyone's blessing during the pandemic, whether they even were able to enjoy a blessing during the pandemic. But that was something that as an athlete, I never had, because I mean, even back in high school, the most I saw my parents were like driving to and from school. And other than that, I was at school 8 hours a day. Then I was going to practice, and then I was coming home from practice, and whether it was club volleyball or school volleyball, and then I'd do homework. And then in college, I'm not even at home. I'm not even in my home state. So I don't see them a lot. And then I may be home for like 2, 3, 5 weeks out of the entire year. And so being home with my family over quarantine was such a blessing. But there were some moments where I just felt like I needed some time to myself and time to de-stress and relax. Because for me, I was still in school during the pandemic. So I had online classes to do. I also wanted to spend time with my family. I wanted to do family dinners every night, but I also needed a little break. And so talk a little bit about those conversations that you have to have when it's not just putting work aside or not just putting those priorities aside, but also putting your loved ones aside. Because I feel like that can be a hard conversation to have too.
It definitely can be. I think the way I would handle it is just I'm just leading with honesty, right? Like, oh my God, family dinner. And my family is the same way. We do all these family dinners. My mom has us over, and I don't always want to go. Like, I don't, I love my family, but sometimes you just don't want to. And so I think the way I've handled it in the past too is just, this sounds so fun. And I am, it's so cool that you want to do this. And I love everyone. I've just had the longest week and I know that I really need to recharge by myself. I hope everyone has the best time. Can't wait to see pictures, or maybe I can make the next one, but I won't be able to make it, period.
And no further explanation needed.
Right. Like, I most of the time try to be honest. I very rarely would be like, oh, something came up at work. Like, I think it is important to be honest. And then it encourages others to do the same in their relationship with you. Like, I'm even with my friends, I am not someone who says something they don't mean. So, when you're like friends with people, and even like my best friends will do this, like, oh my God, it's totally fine. Like, I'll drive over there, or like, I'll come pick you up, or, oh my God, I'll treat. Like, they say things, then they're just expecting you to like offer, no, I'll pay for mine, or no, I'll meet you halfway. Like, I'm not like that. Like, don't say it if that's not what you want to do. So literally yesterday, my one friend texted me, do you want to go on a walk? I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to. I go, where? She's like, I can totally come to you. And I live 20 minutes away. And so, I'm like, I just said to her, I'm like, for real? I'm like, because you offered, like, that would be dope. Like, I don't want to get in my car. And she was like, oh my God, yeah, for sure. I'll come your way. I'm like, okay, great. But I was just laughing at myself because I think most people are like, oh my God, no. Let's go halfway. Like, that's not how I roll. And also, if I texted her to walk, I'll be honest. Like, I'll say, I can totally come to you. I feel like getting in my car. I want to drive. I love it. I have a podcast to listen to. I'm coming to you. Or I would say, oh my God, I want to meet up with you for a walk. Can we meet halfway though? I don't really want to drive 20 minutes. Like, I'm just honest. And I find that people find it very refreshing in relationships when they know exactly what you're thinking. And then in return, my friends can trust me if they ask me if I like their dress, or they ask me or when I tell them, I believe in you, you can totally do this thing. I wouldn't just blow smoke up their butt and lie to them. And so, I'm a big fan of always being honest, especially in your relationships. And you can do it in a really nice way.
And talk a little bit more about that, because I think of the concept of faking it until you make it. And that was something that I repeated to myself growing up all the time when I was exhausted, when I was tired, when I had work to do, whatever it may be, going into tournaments for club volleyball and going into nationals and thinking, oh, I'm not feeling it today, but hey, I got to fake it till I make it, because I got to get a D1 scholarship and I got to do this and that and the other. And you can apply it to anything and everything that you do. But I feel like so often this concept of faking it until you make it is glorified. It's glorified when, you don't get much sleep and the grind is always glorified, which I'm not saying it shouldn't be, because we do want to work hard and we do want to do our best and we do want to push past adversity. And that's a lot of what this podcast is about, is pushing past adversity. But there's a good way to do it. And it doesn't always have to be sacrificing your mental health to be able to make it. You don't always have to fake it. Talk about that.
Fake it till you make it just has so many possible meanings. And that's where I think the lines can be blurry, and it can be used like it was for you, right? As a sense of like ignoring what's really going on. So fake it till you make it, like I said, there's a range of what that means. If we're talking about fake it till you make it in the sense of you're about to walk into a meeting and you're the only woman in the room and you need to really believe that you know what you're about to say and you can do this, that's a fake it till you make it that I'm a big fan of. I also think we can just say believe in yourself, or trust in your abilities and in your practice. Like, I think there's other ways we can highlight what that means. And so that aspect of it, I love. You got to tell yourself what you're going to be. I think the power of your mind and your inner dialogue is everything when it comes to confidence. However, if we are pretending we're happy when we're not, or we're stable when we're not, or we are okay with something when we're not, it can really be detrimental to our own happiness, our mental health, our safety sometimes. So I would encourage people to instead shift towards like believe in myself mentality, because there's no discrepancy between that. Like, you know, in a moment, if believing in yourself is going to help you with that meeting, or if you use that term when you're feeling really down, like believe in yourself. Okay, I can open up about what I'm going through. I can get through this. You know, I think it's a better way to think about those moments, because the umbrella, fake it so you make it, you know, it can't always lead you down the right path.
It has some pros and cons, that's for sure. And you mentioned another thing there, which is confidence, which is another big theme that I'm not necessarily we have to pour into today. But how do you handle situations when you aren't confident but want to have confidence? How do you remain confident when you're not feeling confident, if that makes sense?
Definitely makes sense, and I relate to it. I mean, there's so many things you could tap into. What comes to mind is like, just decide you're not going to get like, I'm just going to do this thing and I'm going to do it and whatever. Like, I'm going to do it. I don't give a along with that. Like, so what? Like, there's a million people in another country that have no idea who I am. They don't care about me. Like, this doesn't matter. Like, my life is not going to end if I fail. So whatever, I'm going to go for it. Also, like, you learn, like we said, I'm going to learn something through this experience. And then fourth, you could say on the other side of this, I'm going to have my back. So whatever happens, like, I know I have my own back. And so those are probably like things that come to mind when I'm in a situation where I need to be confident and I don't feel confident. I would maybe pull from those areas.
And talk about that last point there, because I love how you said that. My eyes literally lit up when you said that. I'm going to have my own back. Talk more about that aspect.
That's actually something that I learned from April Ross when I sat down and interviewed her. And it was so eye-opening for me to hear it the first time too, because she said, like, you know, on the other side of any situation, I know I'm going to have my own back. Like, I know I will be there for myself. And I am myself, so I can make that promise and I know I can keep it. Like, you know, it's 100% in my control. So if I step out to bat and I miss and I strike out, like, I'll be fine. Like, I will have my own back. And I think that can give you so much power and leverage in any situation in life, is this fear of abandonment or what people are going to say or whatnot. Like, if you know you're still going to have yourself, then you can do anything.
That's so good. And it goes back to that first attempt in learning and further attempts in learning concept you talked about with failure, and then making that promise to yourself too, that, hey, like, even if I do fail, I'm going to have my back. Because also going into that circle again, because every failure is a first attempt in learning. And so I can have my back, because even when the bad things happen, that's a space for me to further change. Going back to forever changing, like this all comes for full circle and supporting itself, because the minute that you're aware where you're at, you can make that promise to yourself that, hey, I will believe in myself, which means I will then have my back, which means I can accept myself where I'm at, which means I can practice self-love. Again, it all just adds on top of each other and it makes sense together. And so talking a little bit more about some fun things, talking about a little bit more of what does Victoria Garrick actually do for self-love? Talk to us a little bit about your self-love routine. What does self-love look like to you?
I think it looks like giving myself time to do what makes me happy. So right now I love watching The Voice. I love that show. It makes me happy to watch The Voice. I love, you know, taking a good shower. I love spending time with Max. My mom's coming over later with the dog. We're gonna have lunch together. What really makes me happy is like connecting with other humans. And so it's funny because I do that all the time, but I do it through a device and I like doing it in person. So, you know, making time to do the things that bring me joy, I think, is the way I show myself love.
Believe it or not, I have never seen The Voice.
Do you like singing and music?
I do. I love it.
What?
I know.
You need to watch it. And this season's so good because Ariana Grande is a coach.
I saw. Okay, so should I start watching The Voice?
Yes, it's on Hulu. I would just watch the first episode. It's so good.
Okay, that'll be my homework tonight, is to watch The Voice.
Oh my God, I hope you love it.
I'll keep you updated. I'll
Yes.
give you tabs. No, that's so awesome though. And just finding the things you love to do, finding time for that, and then finding time to connect with humans. And I think that's such a big point because, I mean, even just reflecting on my life now, a lot of my human interaction is done through things that are on my calendar. It's done through my volleyball team, who's my volleyball team, which I love the most. And I love my coaches that I work with and everything. But even the time that I spend with them, it's because we have to be there. You know, it's not finding time outside of it. And then leading organizations that I lead. I love the people that are there, but even being there, it's when it's mandatory time. So I think going outside of the times that you have already on your calendar for doing even maybe the wedding planning. Wedding planning is something that's on your to-do list, and you're doing a lot of it with Max, you're doing a lot of it with your mom, but then still finding those times to go and walk the dog together, not just think about wedding planning all the time, not just think about the priorities that need to happen and the decisions that need to be made, but spending time away from quote unquote work, spending time away from all the chaos in your mind at some points, and finding time to yourself, finding peace, and finding that with the people that you spend time with. I love that.
Yeah.
And one more question too, just talking more about this calendar that we have all the time, and setting space and time for ourselves. What kind of boundaries do you put in place when setting your calendar each week? Because I assume that you don't overload it so that you are stressed. You know, you try your best to create boundaries for yourself, and you've been doing this for a little while now. So I assume that you have failed and learned and progressed over the years. So what are some boundaries that you do put in place to help your weeks a little more manageable?
This is definitely going to come off super like bad, but this
We
is
get
the
the
truth.
honesty.
I just don't do things I don't want to do anymore. Like I just don't. And I'm so privileged and blessed to be in that place in my life and like my career and financially where I can do that. But like when I was first starting, like, and someone reached out to me to speak, like regardless of what they could pay me, or if they said we want a workshop, I was like, whatever, I'll do it. Like whatever you want, because I was trying to grow and I was like, I'll do it. Or if someone reached out, will you do my project for my paper? Will you come on my podcast? Will you do anything? I would say yes to everything. And I just got to a point where like I was doing all these things and it was so emotionally draining and I didn't even have time to do my own work. And some people like just waste your time. They don't come prepared or they don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, why am I doing? I'm like, people don't even return my emails, and I'm returning emails and scheduling things with people, things I don't have to do. And that's hard for me because I like to be a nice person. I like to do everything for everyone. I like to be a yes woman. I'm a people pleaser. But I recently got to a place where I was like, no, like I don't go on podcasts anymore. I go on yours because I like you. But like, you know, it is a lot to say yes to everything. And so that's been big for me, is I only do things I really want to do. I batch my days. So Wednesdays are like my phone's interviews days. So I interviewed someone before this. I have another podcast I'm doing after this. I've got phone calls. Wednesday is my day where I know I'm talking, I'm on my computer, I'm locked in, you know, then I know on Thursday, tomorrow, I don't have any calls, any Zooms, I can just create, you know, on Friday. So that's been helpful as well. I think those two things have been good for me. Is like the first one is like protecting my time and my energy. And then the second one is really batching my days so that I wake up in the morning and I mentally can prepare for what the tasks need from me. When I was first starting out, I would do a Zoom interview, and then I would film a TikTok, and then I would film a YouTube, and then I would hop on a call. And it was like I was going from so many different things that it was too hard for my brain.
That's actually so relatable for myself and such a great piece of advice, because as I struggle with post-concussive syndrome, I try to manage a lot my time that I spend looking at screens and spend doing computer work and things like that. So I think batching your days each week is such great advice, because I can spend, okay, Wednesday is going to be my day that I try to look at the screen and I get all the screen work done. But then Thursdays, I'm going to be off the screen and maybe I'm meeting with people in person. So it's not as much Zoom calls, it's not as much emails, but it's meeting people face to face. I think that's such great advice. And for me, like literally, I'm just like, okay, I need to start batching my days, because that's going to help my brain. That's literally going to help my brain.
It's a game changer. and I hope people listening don't think I'm the worst, but like you just get to a point where you cannot say yes to everyone. If I said yes to everything, I would have literally no time. And I know, and it breaks my heart when someone reaches out and is like, this high school volleyball team, your biggest fans. I'm like, I'm crying inside, but but if I say yes, then it's like when, and I do my best. Like anyone hit an opponent, I always make the time. Anyone I have a relationship with, I always make the time. I just, at some point you just can't keep doing it, or like, that's part of putting myself first. And it's hard because I'm even here now, like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm horrible and I'm so ungrateful and I'm blah, blah, blah. But like, if I did it like I did it before, I would just be completely burned out. So this is an example of me putting myself first, and it's difficult to do that.
Yeah, that's so good. And I was listening to your podcast the other day with the Birds Papaya, and you guys were kind of talking about that same concept of how women, it's kind of in our blood, it's in our generations that which this was so cool. She brought up how we were first taught to basically be the woman of the house, like taking care of the house, making sure the kids were all good by the time your husband came home, making sure everything was clean, tidy, and all that stuff. And then along the way, we thought, oh, but we also want to be some like cool girl bosses too. So we're going to go into the workforce, but we're still going to clean the house and have the kids prepped and do all this stuff too. And it's just been like one thing on top of the other, adding to our schedules, adding to our list, and wanting to do everything and doing it well. But in reality, we can't do that. It's impossible.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
So I think just managing that, and whether it is trying to find a schedule that works for you best, whether it is batching your days, whether it's setting out, maybe it's batching your days in hours. Maybe it's, okay, for an hour, I'm going to do emails. And then an hour, I'm going to go outside and get fresh air. And then another hour, that's when I'm going to have family time. And then another hour, I'm going to do this, whether it's batching your week, batching your days, whatever it may be, or finding a system that works for you. Again, going back to what Victoria brought up in the very beginning of this, was just discovering yourself, dating yourself, what works well, having that neutral mindset, of a mindset that really helps you learn, going in with no expectations, not low expectations. Don't get that mixed up. It's not low expectations, it's no expectations, so that you can learn from yourself, learn from the things that you face, learn from the good, the bad, the ugly, learn from the first attempts in learning, learn from the failures, learn from all that, and just continually progress. Figure out what works for you, figure out how you can best prioritize yourself while also prioritizing the other things that you want to live and learn and talk about as well. And so as we kind of wrap up this podcast, this is the Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. So of course I want to ask you some Play Where Your Feet Are questions as well. So after having this conversation today, mixing in the mantra of play where your feet are here and there, how do you think that playing where your feet are helps manage your thoughts about yourself?
Helps manage my thoughts about myself. Well, play where your feet are to me means being present. So when I think about my thoughts, when you really do get present, you actually don't have thoughts, right? You're just conscious and you're just experiencing the moment. So I think taking that deep breath and not worrying about the future or the past and just being in the now, and it's very hard to do it, and I still work on it all the time, helps me manage thoughts and my perception of myself, because I can just get into where I am, where my feet are, and what I know to be true in that moment.
And a lot of people, I mean, we've given a lot of advice today, and I hope everyone has been taking notes, writing down notes, typing notes in their phone, whatever it may be, because everything, I mean, I'm going to enjoy just going back and listening to this as I edit, so that I can just have all of this information absorb into my brain to learn all this stuff. But after, talking so much about advice today, what's one of your best piece of advice you could give to encourage people to play where their feet are?
Trying to be present is a skill and it takes time. And so I would just want to say, it's going to take time and reps. And if they think I'm going to give an answer that's going to get them present and playing where their feet are, that's just not how it works, sadly. Like in anything in life, especially athletes, you can't just snap your fingers and be like really good. It takes practice and reps and watching the film and going back and studying and trying again. So I would say my piece of advice is to prepare, to put the time in and the effort in, and over time, you're going to see the results if you put in that work. And, that can be mindfulness, meditation, reading a book like The Mindful Athlete by George Mumford. All of those things can contribute to allowing and helping yourself get present.
Most definitely. I think you mentioned it too, putting in the effort and being mindful as well. I think there's such an intentionality in playing where your feet are. It's a determination to play where your feet are. It's a motivation to play where your feet are. And it's something that, like you said, it's every rep. Every rep you have to focus on playing where your feet are. My associate head coach here at Miami, Casey Kreider, he actually coached at Stanford. You may or may not know him. But he always says that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And maybe it's a little dramatic, but the mindset that he has there is that if I'm focusing on volleyball to make sure my platform looks like this, I'm staying in front of the ball, whatever it might be, that every rep I do, I need to be focused on that positive change. I need to be focused on doing it the right way. I need to be focused on being intentional about it. Because if I'm not, and if I'm slacking off, then that just makes it easy to go into bad habits again. And so sure, that might happen. In fact, it probably does happen. It probably will happen. And it'll probably happen a lot of times in life. But first attempt in learning is failure. And so it's just being intentional, whether it's to reset or to keep going, to continually play where your feet are. Victoria, any last thoughts or words?
Thank you so much. It's been so fun to chat with you. And I too can't wait to listen back to our convo. And thank you so much for inviting me on.
Yes, it was such a pleasure. And I can't wait to have you on again, or just keep catching up, watching the wedding planning play out. I mean, you're so awesome just to be able to follow and have the energy go off of each other. It's so been incredible. So thank you for all you are. Thank you for being honest and real on the good days and the bad days, and just sharing your life with us, because you really are such a joy, and we appreciate all you do.
Thanks so much. I feel the same about you. Thanks for spreading all the positive vibes always.
Always. It's my pleasure. Awesome. Thank you, Victoria.
Woo! Thanks so much for having me, babe. Okay, I'll talk to you later, and text me when it's out.
Yes, of course I will.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. We loved having Victoria Garrick on the show, and I know you guys did too. Make sure to look below in the description for all mentioned links, podcasts, social media, and more, so you can not only follow Victoria, but also all things Play Where Your Feet Are. It's all in the description below. Check it out. Go to those links and follow all the platforms there, guys. Whether it's looking for Victoria's content or our content, it's all down there. And you can see more information about merch, about books, about so much more involving Play Where Your Feet Are as well. And you guys might be watching this episode here, but reminder that we are streaming the podcast on all podcasting platforms. So whether that's Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it might be, wherever it is, Play Where Your Feet Are is there. But guys, thanks so much again for listening to this episode. You just listened to Season 1, Episode 2 with Victoria Garrick on the Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Be blessed and keep playing where your feet are.